of the internet where I like to talk about knitting and the fiber arts. And if you'd like to find me on social media, I am at Zoe Nichols, that's KNITCHOLS, on Instagram and Ravelry, and you can find my hand-dyed yarns on Etsy under the name of Felicity Yarn Studio. So big thank you to all of my new subscribers. I'm so happy to have you guys here with me, and of course a big welcome back to all of my returning viewers. Hope that you all have been well the last few weeks. Life has been a little bit crazy here, but I'll get to that at the end of the episode. First thing that I want to mention up front is that me and my sister, who is Naomi, she's the yarn curator and has her own podcast, we are running a joint knit along, and that is the New Year Old Stash Cowl or Mal. It's more of a make along than knit along. You can crochet if you want. But the point of it is to use up some of your stash that's been around for a while. Her and I are doing a no spin challenge, even though, well, you'll see. We do have a Ravelry group, a joint Ravelry group right now, but neither one of us are very active in it at the moment, so we need to get onto that. And we do have a hashtag that we're using for the Cowl or Mal, and that is New Year Old Stash 2020. I'm gonna put it on the screen just to be sure that I'm saying the right thing. Please feel free to join in for that. I've pulled a few skeins from the shop as prizes, and I know Naomi's been putting some things aside from her stash. So I didn't bring them up here with me today, but I'll try to remember them on the next episode so y'all can see what I have put aside for some prizes. So I think that's it as far as administrative stuff goes. I guess the first thing we can talk about is what I am wearing, and this is the basic Raglan pullover by LOCATELLI. I know that Naomi actually just finished knitting hers, and she did a little finished object video about that, so you should go and check that out. I think I agree with most of what she said in there. But I knit this about this time last year, actually. Black Mountain Yarn Shop was having a really great sale where if you bought all of their stock in one colorway for whatever they put on sale, you got it all for half off. So I got a sweater's quantity and DK weight for half off, which is amazing. This is WOOLENBOON and the BOON DK base, and I want to say the colorway is Forest or Woodland Forest maybe. It's on my Ravelry project page, which I will leave a link to in the description box down below. That's where you'll find show notes for everything today. So I just basically knit this as a way to use up this sweater's quantity that I managed to snag at a great price. Not really thinking that it would be something that I wore a whole lot, but surprisingly, it is a sweater that I grab very often. I mean, I wear it a couple times a week around the house here. It's just really comfortable, and I guess maybe because I got such a good deal on the yarn, I'm not worried about beating it up too much. It is starting to pill, and I do need to de-pill it because I wear it so often. I will say that it grew like crazy the first time that I washed it and blocked it. So I decided to try and block it again, which only made the problem worse. It got even bigger. So actually when we were in Scotland last year, I threw it in the dryer and it shrunk back up to an acceptable size. So since then I have washed it here, and every time I just kind of have to throw it in the dryer for a few minutes to get it to get back to a more reasonable size for me. So yeah, other than that, I really love this sweater. It's a great wardrobe piece for me. Moving on to finished objects, I do have two of them today for you. The first one you may have already seen my FO feature video that I put up a few days ago, and that is my Stalactite sweater. So here it is. If you haven't seen the video, I'll leave a link to that and try to put it on the screen if I can figure out how to work that voodoo. But this is Stalactite by Camille Rosselle, and it was in an issue of Lina magazine. I used CROFT 29 and Brooklyn Tweed Shelter in the Foothills colorway for my accent color. And it's actually a very similar shape and construction to the sweater that I'm wearing now. I have talked at length about this sweater on the podcast, and I haven't, just finished that video where I went over all the details, so I'm not going to rehash everything here. The only other thing that I wanted to mention really quickly was something that got brought up when I posted about this on Instagram, and someone mentioned that it's not a super size inclusive pattern, and I would agree with that. I think that's a fair criticism. I think 50 inches being the largest bust size is a little weak. I kind of always ride that line. It's Darcy's tail. I kind of always ride that line of being in the largest size, or at least traditionally have. Within the last 2 years or so, I would say a lot of designers have gotten more size inclusive and have been grading their patterns for a wider range of sizes. I know that also some designers are going back and revising old patterns to include more sizes, which is really nice. So maybe someday in the future this will happen with this sweater. I don't know. I can't speak for the designer or for Lina magazine. I would say if you're desperate for this sweater, you could always knit it at a larger gauge, like I mistakenly did the first time around, to get a larger size, or find another basic raglan shaped sweater. It would be a shame to have to pay just to get this kind of slip stitch detail information. But again, if you're desperate enough, when there's a will, there's a way, right? So yeah, I am pretty pleased with my stalactites, and I'm thinking because it is a similar shape to this sweater and a similar fit that it will probably also get a considerable amount of wear. That is assuming that it stays cool enough here. That is my first finished object. My second finished object is something that y'all have not even seen before. This is the Tiger Owl Cowl. Huzzah! And this is a free pattern. It is a pattern by Greg Cohoon. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it is provided by the Carolina Fiber Festival. And this is a yarn festival in Raleigh, North Carolina. So that's about 2.5 hours away from me, maybe more like 3. But they do a make along. They have a knitting and a crochet pattern every year. I believe there is some like reward, like a little button or a badge that you can get if you're one of the first people to show up with your project. So the reason that we decided to do this is, well, my mom and I were planning on attending this Carolina Fiber Festival. It's the first time for either of us. We have wanted to go in the past, but it always fell on a weekend where Jason and I actually usually like to go out of town because it's around his birthday. So I think it might be a week earlier this year, so it worked out for us. And my mom also invited her sisters, so my aunts and Naomi, to come up from Florida and join us. So everybody's coming up, and my mom really wanted us all to make this cowl together since she is a new needle knitter. She was a loom knitter for a while, and we converted her to needle knitting within the last few months. So yeah, so we all decided to knit this cowl together. And I was going to be the party pooper and sit it out because I don't enjoy knitting lace. But I'm a good daughter. I'm a team player. and I decided to knit this. So I actually decided when I was in Black Mountain Yarn Shop for the Stephen West event to buy some yarn so I could be able to knit this. It calls for sport weight yarn, and somehow I did not own any sport weight yarn. It's crazy, I know. So I did kind of break the no spend vow. So I picked up a skein of AIMEE in the Merino Sport Base, and these are my leftovers. And this colorway is called Winter, and I don't know how much detail comes across on the screen, but it is not just a plain white or cream. It has tones of gray and pink, ever so subtle in there, and it is just absolutely beautiful. It reminds me of like a pearl or like mother of pearl, just the subtle kind of shininess to it. So as a yarn dyer, I can appreciate the restraint that it would take to dye something this subtle. Again, I don't know what it shows on screen right now, but in person you can definitely see the subtle tones there, and it just, I don't know, when I saw this skein I decided I guess I'll join in. I guess, you know, it's any excuse to buy some AIMEE. So yeah, I knit this in less than 2 weeks, which is crazy because I really expected to take the whole like month and a half that I had to knit it. Yeah, I started that night, so January 25th, and I want to say I finished, well, I finished mid last week sometime. It's a fairly simple pattern as far as lace goes, or at least that's my understanding, because I don't knit a ton of lace. I know that my mom was having trouble with the knit 3 together, and she found a little video on YouTube with kind of a workaround for that. So maybe I'll see if I still have the link that she sent that she was using and try to put that in the description box also. Overall though, I just kind of powered through it because it was like, it was a combination of I really loved this yarn, and I also just really wanted it to be over with as soon as possible. Honestly, my favorite part was knitting the cables. So yeah, I'm happy to have something like this in my accessory collection. I don't have a cowl kind of this shape and size. The owl motif is really cute. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out. So in the meantime, I have only been working on 2 things. The first being my self-striping socks. It's a tangled mess right now. So these are some plain old vanilla socks that I started a few weeks ago. They are knit out of some yarn that I dyed just to see if I could make self-striping yarn, and clearly I was successful at that. However, I do not have the equipment or the time or the patience to regularly dye self-striping yarn. I totally understand the price on it now after putting all the labor into one skein. I really love these colors. I think I've talked about in the past how for the first time, I wasn't really going for a neon coral there. I actually wanted more of a like peachy tone, but it came out like orange, and I was not feeling that. So I kind of turned it neon instead. But these are obviously 2 at a time toe-up socks, and I wanted to try something different with these. Normally I do a 72 stitch vanilla sock, and this time I'm doing a 68 stitch sock, only because I've noticed in the past that some of my socks do get a little bit stretched out and they will shrink back in the dryer. However, I don't always love putting my hand knit socks in the dryer because I want to prolong the life of them for as long as possible. So I'm trying 68 stitches on these, and I think they are comfortable that way. We'll see. I've really only tried them on, you know, for a few seconds at a time. We'll see how they wear on my feet. And the only other thing that I didn't really consider until I was in the middle of it is I did a German short row heel on my Christmas socks, and they were a little tight across the instep because I had forgotten to increase. Now those were 72 stitch socks. So I did remember to increase when I did these, and on my Christmas socks, when I did the German short row heel, they were a true, or well, they were a forethought, afterthought heel. I had kind of a blonde moment when I was doing these, and that I started doing the heels on both of them 2 at a time, only to realize, duh Zoe, you can't really do German short rows 2 at a time. So I had to like move one off of the needles and put it on one of my 9-inch circulars. So I worked one heel on the magic loop, and then I did the other one, and then I just put that one back onto my magic loop. So you live, you learn. I was pre-heel on the last podcast, so I've done the heels and about 2 inches since then. But again, I did increase on the instep for these. So I increased 4 stitches pre-heel. So that took me up to 72 inches. So it'll be interesting to see how much these ones pull with that increase there, or if I should have increased more if I'm going to be doing 68 stitch socks from here on out. I don't know. We'll see. I'm playing around with it. So I'd like to get 2, maybe 3 more repeats with the lavender stripe before I put in my cuff. I like a fairly long leg on my sock, and I will do probably a contrast cuff in the same basic gray that I have here. This is West Yorkshire Spinners. I don't know what the colorway is on it. I think it's just some numbers, and I did not bring my project bag up here with me. And finally, the last thing that I have been working on is my Jigshawl puzzle. I believe on the last episode I was somewhere around here on this section, this like coral and black marled section. I think it's upside down. So yeah, this was section 17, and then this little rectangle up top was section 18, and I have done this one as well, section 19. So there's 22 left. So is that right? I have 4 sections left is all I know. So the next one is another kind of like rectangle or parallelogram here, and basically it's just making this last triangle shape. So actually I took some video and I'll pop it on the screen so you can see what the whole thing looks like laid out. And I gotta say that the more that I add to this shawl, the better I'm liking it all together. It's starting to look a little bit more cohesive. I am thinking that for this next section, which will go like across here, I either want to do another section in this handspun or marl again with that like blackish pink color. I definitely want to do one of each of those on these last 4 sections that I have because they do get pretty small towards the end. The last 2 are fairly small. So I think actually towards the end I might do another. I think I have enough of this purple left, and then I don't know, I'll just figure something out for the last one. But I was kind of trying to think ahead on this because I would like to potentially use some of my leftovers for a test knit that I signed up to do. The designers who made the sorrel sweater, that's Wool and Pine, it's Dank Fiber or Selena of Dank Fiber and Abby of Abby Knits. They put out a call for a test knit for a cowl. You can use your leftovers from the sorrel sweater, clearly if you have enough. But I kind of want to do something different, and I didn't quite have enough leftovers of my, of the size that I made for that cowl. So I did go stash diving, and I did kind of pull out a few options. Nothing felt quite right. Although we'll see, I don't know. I've pulled out a few more things today that I want to play around with. But again, I might want to use some of my leftovers from this. So the cowl is constructed with like an outer decorative stitch motif, but then there's a second kind of layer that you knit. So it's almost like not double knitted, but like if you've ever made a hat that has the double knit brim, I think that's how this cowl is similarly constructed. So the inner lining, they suggest doing in like a pop of color. So when it's on your neck, you'll get that little peak of color sticking out. Yeah, I've got some ideas in the back of my head. I need to go stash diving. I actually got the pattern yesterday, and that comes out on March 1st. So I feel like I need to get cracking on that. But considering how quickly I knocked out a lace cowl recently, I was feeling pretty confident that I could work this other test knit in time. And I think I'm really feeling like I'm gonna finish this shawl sooner rather than later also. The only other big decision I have on this shawl is what color I want to use as the I-cord bind off around the entire thing. So we shall see, but yes, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel for some of my whips right now. So in an effort to keep this episode from being crazy long, I am just gonna run through some of my acquisitions really quick that I got from Black Mountain Yarn Shop. I did have some fiber arrive from Spinning Mermaid, but again, I haven't been doing a ton of spinning, so I might save that for next episode. I'm actually gonna look like a glutton when I show y'all all the fibers that I bought from her, but I promise it was spread out over multiple purchases. Again, Stephen West came to Black Mountain, and that was a really fun experience. He's always super nice, and I purchased his latest book, the Westknits Best Knits 3, and I believe this is more shawls. Super fun picture on the back there. Of course, I've bought one of his shawl patterns that's not in this book that I'm still, you know, trying to work up the nerve to cast on, and it's the Flying Foxtail shawl. It's a brioche shawl. I've been feeling like I want to do a brioche shawl and something beyond just basic brioche. There's a couple other ones in this book. I don't know, I like having his books. I think they are a good reference, and of course they're beautifully printed and produced, so I had to get that. And I, of course, bought myself the skein of La Vie Anime. I bought Naomi a skein also so she could participate in the knit-along, the owl cowl knit-along. But I was allowed to spend some money there because my mother-in-law was very generous and gave me a gift card for my birthday to Black Mountain. So I have been dreaming of a cabled sweater for a long time now, and I took this as an opportunity to kind of splurge on something that I normally wouldn't splurge on myself for, and I've wanted to knit a cabled sweater out of Brooklyn tweed for a long time, so I bought myself a sweaters quantity. Now this may look familiar. It is Brooklyn Tweed Shelter in Foothills colorway. So clearly I'm feeling this kind of greeny gray color, yellowy gray. I have a pattern in mind. I want to make the TSUBAKI sweater. It was written by a Japanese designer, and I don't know her name off the top of my head, but I will put all of this information on the screen. It's a really gorgeous cabled panel in the front. ambitiously, I thought that I wanted to do all over cables, but I think maybe I should just start with just the panel on the front to keep myself sane. Now, my only issue is that pattern called for sport weight, and I should have gotten Brooklyn tweed and the loft base, which is the fingering weight, but will knit up at a heavier gauge. Instead I got shelter, which is the worsted weight base, which, okay, sport is in between fingering and worsted, right? I could just swatch with this and kind of figure out how many sizes I need to go down to get the right size, or I'm sure I can go up to Black Mountain and switch this out for the loft base. I did win a gift card from one of their drawings. I got a phone call a few days ago about that. So I have an excuse to go back up there. Well, 2 excuses now to go back up there. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I honestly don't know if I'm going to have a good time to go up there in the coming weeks, and like months really. So I don't know. What would you do? Would you keep it and make it work? Or would you go drive to the yarn shop and exchange 12 skeins of yarn for the closer to the correct weight? I've seen that other people have done that pattern in loft, but not in shelter. Again, I still want to finish a few projects before I dive into this, because I am trying to be slightly more monogamous this year. But I'm pretty sure this is my next my next sweater project. So that is it for Accquisitions. I have been doing a little bit of yarn dyeing, not as much as I would like to. I will explain in a moment. And I do have some sock sets that I'm getting ready to pop into the shop, but our life has been kind of turned upside down. Not turned upside down, but I don't know. The last few weeks have been crazy around here. So a few weeks ago, Revan got sick. He had a bad tooth, and I spent some time shuttling him back and forth to the vet and being worried about him. And then last week I was in the living room, kind of clearing up and unpacking some boxes, when I noticed that the floor was wet, which was weird, because there's concrete subfloors down there. So I went into the downstairs bathroom that we have and noticed that the toilet was leaking. So we have contacted our homeowner's insurance, and they came out today, actually. The claims adjuster did, and we should be getting reimbursement to get that fixed. So that is good news. However, that means that pretty much everything that was in our living room has needed to be moved upstairs, or, you know, away from the damaged floor, so we can get that ripped up at some point. They will replace, you know, the floor in the bathroom as well, but that means that we need to finish doing the work in that bathroom that we started a while ago, which means ripping out a vanity and some other things. Basically, all of our home renovation projects have just been fast-tracked. The very good thing is that I think we'll be getting a decent compensation, so we may be able to pay someone to do part of this work for us, which will take some of the pressure off. But anyway, I did not mean to go on a rant and a ramble about that. That is just why every time I'm ready to go get into the kitchen and do some yarn dyeing, it seems like something new is popping up and like stressing me out. So yeah, all of my shop yarn is kind of away in bins right now. I mean, I can get to it, but it's not as easily accessible as it is most of the time. What I do have pulled up here with me is some of the plant-based dyeing that Last time I showed you guys the pecan dyed yarn that I made, or dyed. So I did get some alum, just the stuff that you can find in the baking aisle at the grocery store. And I wanted to see what the pecan dye would do with alum, because my understanding is that in general, alum will make the colors stronger or more vibrant and fuller, when quite the opposite happened. Or I don't know, the colors don't look that drastically different, and if anything, this just looks like blah. I don't know. Even the neps on the tweed base picked up some of the color versus like this one where they stayed white. Not only is the color just like, to me, it's really hard and like crunchy feeling. It's really gross, actually. I will not be selling these skeins because they are not up to my standards. Okay, so I mordanted this yarn, and I know I did it correctly because the ones that I mordanted and used with black bean, which I'll show y'all in a second, turned out great. I used mordant with these skeins and noticed that they were like even lighter. So I was like, well, I remember when I dyed with avocado pits, to take the color a little more pink, I had to use baking soda. So I dumped a little bit of baking soda in the pot, and it did take a color a little bit better. However, I think that is partially what's responsible for making this so crunchy. I rinsed and rinsed and rinsed. This was the most I ever rinsed yarn that I have dyed, either with, you know, the like commercial dyes or natural dyes or plant dyes. And it was only when I added some vinegar to the rinse that it finally stopped like sudsing up. So I may soak them again in some vinegar just to see if they soften up any, just to make them usable for something. I don't know, we'll see. But that was a definite fail. So if you're out there and you do have pecans and you want to try dyeing with them, don't use a mordant. You will get better results without it. Or at least I did. So again, I also did some black bean dyeing, and these skeins feel amazing in comparison. So these are some minis that I dyed. They are superwash. These two are non-superwash. What I did, so actually this one, and I don't know how well you can see it on screen. This one I first put in the bath that I had made with Christmas cactus blooms. So they were mostly peach blooms off of my mom's plant. It did make a slightly yellow bath, and I stuck the skein into that bath, but I really didn't notice any color change. It didn't really look like it was doing a whole lot. It just kind of looked like a slightly more yellow version of a regular old undyed skein of yarn. But these two I had plopped directly into the black bean dye bath, and they immediately took color. And this one looked more purple, and this one was like a very vibrant blue. And I did them with no heat. These probably sat for like an hour before I put this one in there with it. So that's why it didn't get quite as blue of a saturation. These three sat in the fridge for about a week. I did pull out the minis a few days before I pulled out these two. I don't know why, I just felt like doing it. So it's definitely beneficial to do a cold bath or a cold set with the black bean dye. I haven't noticed any color kind of escaping. I didn't get a ton of color washing out of these when I did rinse them. I did still have some color left in the container. I dyed it in one of these. There was some color left, so I knew that I wasn't going to get a super intense shade like this, and I had actually used up all of my alum mordanting these skeins. So what I did was I took a skein of mohair and then 2 more of the sock yarn minis, and I actually just soaked them in citric acid for like an hour or so. So I just threw those in the container, and you know, just to see what would happen, try a different base. And interestingly, it went from a light bluey purple color to this really pretty pink. So that was completely unexpected. I really hope that the color stays with that. Citric acid is technically a mordant. So yeah, we'll see what that does. I started them a few days ago, so I'll pull them out and show y'all on the next podcast how that goes. So my aunts and my mom and my sister and I have all been in our group chat talking about doing a little bit of dyeing when they come up to stay. So I've got some avocados saved up. I think that'll be a really easy kind of group project to do. And we may try dyeing with some other materials. I don't know. We're a little bit, we also don't want to like stink up the VRBO or, you know, leave any stains behind, but I've gotten pretty good at cleaning up my messes over the years. So, all right, guys, I think that is about it. Hopefully life will be a little less crazy in the coming weeks. Probably not with the Fiber Festival coming up, and we are planning some trips back east. My parents are actually getting ready to do the RV life full time and sell their house, so we will be taking over a lot of their house items, which is great because we need them. But again, that's just another reason to fast track getting our dual living rooms set up and renovated. But anyway, I will keep y'all posted. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in the comment box down below. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, you should really do that so you don't miss any videos. Also, I'm really close to 200 subscribers and I would love to do a giveaway. So just waiting for that to happen. I will see you guys in a bit, and happy knitting. Bye. Thank you.